Alright, so we are going to go over the tutorial here for how to create an outline for an informative speech as well as the note cards for it. So I already created the outline for us since we know how to do most of that. There's only a few added steps in this outline which we'll go over. And then we'll also go over how to create these note cards for our speech. So first off, let's just start with the outline itself. So as you can see, we have our attention getter still, we have our thesis, and then we have our overview. What we're going to add for this one is a motivation statement. What that motivation statement is not how you were motivated, but how you're going to motivate the audience. Why should the audience listen to this? So if I was giving this speech, I would go for my attention getter. Before I get into my speech, I want to take a quick poll. When in class, would you rather sit and listen to a lecture for 50 minutes, or would you like to have engaging activities throughout the class? Then I would assess the situation. That's good. That's what we're going to talk about today. How we're going to talk about engaging the class. Since all of us here are students, I'm excited to share with everyone about an engaging learning method that teachers are incorporating into their classrooms as early as preschool, all the way up into colleges. That would be my motivation. Since we are all here as students, that statement right there is motivation for the audience to listen, since we can all relate to that. Then my thesis statement would be active learning is becoming a popular way to teach. Rather than jumping right into my overview, I would start with a credibility statement, something like, with 3 years of teaching experience and my passion for using active learning in my own classrooms, I'm excited to share with you all about what active learning is and how it impacts the classroom. Specifically, teachers incorporate active learning across the world, as well as active learning offers benefits to both teachers and students. So I'll say this before we move on to the other things that we add in this outline. As you can see, there's an order to this. For me, I set up this speech in this order, but besides having the attention getter first and then having the thesis statement before the overview, the rest of it you can kind of order how you want. If it makes sense to go attention getter, thesis, credibility, overview, motivation, you can do that. You can order this pretty much however you want, as long as that attention getter is first and then the thesis or the overview. So I'll just highlight here our added steps so you can just see those a little bit clearer. Alright, so moving into the body. For this speech, you can have creative transitions, but since it is maybe a little bit more of a formal speech, you can have just simple transitions, such as moving into my first point. Alright, so as you can see, we have our main points, we have our subpoints, and then we have support. For this first support, I just have an example from my own teaching experience, but as you can see, I have this added element here in the second, third, and fourth support. So I have a subpoint that says active learning is being used across the world. For example, and then I have an actual outside source that I did some research and found this quote from. So you will put the quote here, and then after it, in parentheses, you'll either put the author, if there is an author, and then the date, or if there's no author, you'll put the title and date. This is just for the outline itself. When you say it in your speech, it'll obviously be a little bit different than this. So let's just go through, and as you can see, some of these, I'll highlight this as well. So one's my own example, and then I have 3 other examples, because you need 3 outside sources for this speech. And then as we get to our conclusion, it's pretty much the same as our last speech. You won't have any really added elements in this. So the main thing, though, with that informative speech, and I've already started to look at some of your thesis statements, it has to be non-persuasive. So if we look at my thesis statement, it says active learning is becoming a popular way to teach. That might be an opinion, but that's not trying to persuade you that you should incorporate active learning. So it still might have a little bias in your thesis, but you're not trying to persuade the audience that they should act upon something or should do something. So as I go through, I'm talking about a lot of the benefits to active learning. And when I get to the end, I'm talking about active learning is used across the world, but I'm never in my speech saying you should incorporate the benefits of active learning in your own classroom. Alright, so moving over to our note cards. So you get 2 outline note cards. If you haven't set up your note cards in this way, I highly recommend it. So for your 2 outline note cards, have them vertical. And then for your evidence note cards, have them horizontal. So the outline note card is simply putting your outline onto your note cards, except you're not going to put the whole thing. So maybe I write quick poll, engaging class to remind me. Then maybe I have, oops, I gotta shuffle some stuff around here. So my motivation, all of us students, thesis, active learning, popular, overview is going to be after my credibility, so I'll just switch those around. So credibility, 3 years teaching to remind myself, and then my overview, cross world and benefits to teachers, students. So this is just to remind me. For this speech, we still have transitions. You can either write out your transition, or you can just have that transition reminder there. And then for my main point 1, new approaches across world. Subpoint 1, promote student learning. And then this is the thing that might change for us. So I'm just going to do this, expand those a little bit. So right here, this 1 is going to signify, for this 1, we don't need a 1 there. Ignore what I just said. We're going to do that for our next one here. So subpoint 2, we're going to write across the world, and that's when we're going to put our 1. That 1 is going to signify to go to our first evidence note card. So let's draw this quick. Alright, so the 1 right here is going to signify our first outline note card. Oops. Did I get off of draw? There we go. So over here for the author, let's look. Okay, so higher education to active learning platform. Let's go to my references page that I created based on the research that I had. Let's see, oh, it's right here. So it tells me, you know what, there is no author. The title. Just copy paste that over. We have the date, which is 2018, and then the publication is this M2 press wire. And then the quote that I want to use. So with the quote, let's get rid of these lines, and then I will type in the quote that I want. So even though I don't have the quote over here on the references page, you don't need to include that on the reference page. You'll have the quote over here on your note cards. So even though I'm creating my note cards in a Word document, you'll create them on physical note cards. So I'll just type up this quote for us, the one that we're going to include. So it says educational technology is a means to enrich the learning experience. Oops. And then, across the world. Alright, so then that is my quote that I'm going to use. I should probably have included that over here. World. Then I'm going to do that basically for all of these here. So going over to my main point 2, it says active learning. We'll go benefits for teachers and students. Benefits, teachers, students. So point 1, learning objectives, and this we're going to put that 2. Alrighty, and then corner, and then it says Atkins is the author, so let's go over here back to this Atkins. Alright, there's Atkins right there, so we're gonna write Atkins. I do the title. Date is 2018, and then the publication is the Information Systems Journal. And for our quote, I have trends in education call for leaders to do more, provide students an engaging and meaningful classroom experience. Alright, so there's my quote that I'm using. Let's see. So let's go back to my outline. And looks like I don't have a main point 3. So, let's just get rid of that stuff there. So then I have that shows transitions in there, remember. Then let's get right to my conclusion. So the overview, across world, and benefits, thesis, active learning, popular, teach, and then my memorable close. Since my memorable close, I want people to remember, I might add a little bit more wording in here. Sitting in 8 a.m. class, teacher makes you move, not torture, just active learning. So as you can see going through here, our outline note cards look very similar to our informative speech here. I should go back. I'll add subpoint 2. I think you guys get the gist of it, but I'll add it just so there is no confusion, just in case you're moving through this pretty quick. So innovative approach to learning. So then this is where I put 3, and then this one over here would be 3. Alrighty. So let's just do this one quick. So it says for the author Nagria, so let's go over And there it is. Copy that title over. Author. Date, it says 2018. Publication is going to be University Business. And then our quote is going to be Neil Morris said. Oops. Let's do this. Work smarter, not harder. Let's see. There we go. All right, so there's that last note card. So the 1, the 2, and the 3. Let's get rid of confusion. We'll do that. So we're going through. As you can see, you're going through promote student learning. I'll use my own example. Across the world, 1, I'm going to go to this note card. 2, go to that note card. 3, I'm going to go to that note card. So this is what your outline is going to look like. That's what your evidence cards are going to look like. And then this is what your APA references page is going to look like. So when you do find an article, you're going to put the author's last name and then first initial, middle initial in caps with periods after them, then the year with a period, and then you're going to put the title. After the title, you'll put the publication, and then also the volume and issue number, as well as the page numbers if you can find those. And then lastly, you'll put retrieve from, and then you'll put the actual URL that you retrieved it from. If the URL is a mile long, erase it up until a point that makes sense. Going through, as you can see, this one doesn't have an author. So what you do instead is, rather than writing no author, you move the title in front of the date. And with the title, it's going to be all lowercase, as you can see, unless it's going to be proper nouns. So unless they're proper nouns, you lowercase the titles. The only thing that is capitalized is the first word of the title. And then as you can see, this one's a little bit different since it's a book. So books, you still do the author's last name, first initial, date, and then the title of the book is actually Active Learning, and that's going to be italicized, and you actually will capitalize everything in the title. Then you have the publishers, or excuse me, you have where the book was printed, then you have the publishers, and then you have the retrieved from as well. So just to kind of give you a quick example, I won't run through the entire speech, but I'll give you an example how you would give a speech like this. So let's just kind of start at the beginning. Before I get into my speech, I want to take a quick poll. When in class, would you rather sit and listen to a lecture for 50 minutes, or would you like to have an engaging activity throughout the class with the teacher? Okay, by the show of hands, I think people prefer the second one, the engaging activities. And since all of us are here as students, I'm excited to share with everyone about an engaging learning method that teachers are incorporating into their classrooms as early as preschool, all the way up into colleges. Active learning is a popular way to teach. With 3 years of teaching experience and my passion for using active learning in my own classrooms, I'm excited to share with you all about what active learning is and how it impacts a classroom. Specifically, teachers incorporate active learning across the world, as well as active learning offers benefits to both those teachers that I just talked about, as well as students. So let's move into my first point. Teachers use active learning for new approaches of engaging students all across the world. First off, active learning gives teachers a new way to promote student learning in this day and age. For example, with my own teaching experience, I've heard my dad talk about teaching in the past, and he didn't have all this technology available at his hand, so he had to get creative with how to engage the classroom. Nowadays, when I started teaching, I had technology kind of at my disposal, so I really used that to my advantage to engage with the students, show videos, show Netflix shows that really connected with the audience as examples, as well as pull up certain games, interactive games that I found online. Not only that, I am doing that in the United States. Active learning is being used across the world. Okay, pause. This is where I would go over to my first evidence note card. All right, unpause. According to the title Higher Education Active Learning Platform Market 2018 Global Entry, Key Players, Size, Trends, Growth Analysis, all the way up to 2025, written in 2018, published by M2 Presswire. It states that educational technology is a means to enrich the learning experience across the world. All right, pause again. So after you say the quote, you'll have to explain how it relates to the topic. Unpause. So as you can see, people in the United States aren't the only ones using this active learning. It is being used across the world, especially when it comes to technology. Now that we've looked at the usage of active learning, let's cover the benefits of active learning. Active learning can present both benefits to teachers as well as students. So let's start with teachers. Teachers can use active learning to complete learning objectives of class. All right, see, as you can see, we pause, we go over to number 2. All right, unpause. According to Atkins in his article, Active Learning Informative Assessment in a User-Centered Design course written in 2018, published by Information Systems Education Journal, trends in higher education call for leaders to do more to provide students an engaging and meaningful classroom experience. So as you can see, teachers are being held to a higher standard now. We have to really show the students in the class that they're going to have a meaningful and engaging experience if they're going to pay this money to attend our classes. So how do they do this? Teachers use these new interactive, engaging ways, also known as active learning, to really connect with the audience. Furthermore, active learning takes an innovative approach to help students learn. And now we scroll down to 3. Author Nagira, written in the article World of Active Learning, Formal and Informal Learning Process Transformed Campuses Around the Globe, written in 2018, published by University Business. Neil Morris said that the students who are engaged and motivated and enjoy learning are more likely to improve their learning outcomes. What this article is saying, the students that are engaged in the classroom through this active learning and who actually take an enjoyment in that learning are more likely to improve those learning outcomes, whether that be get higher grades or also accomplish the goals and the objectives of the class, which might be to learn certain statistics, learn new formulas, learn something about science, or in a public speaking class, improve their public speaking skills. We've talked about the use of active learning as well as the benefits of active learning. Now let's head towards the end of the class. Active learning has become a popular way to teach. Teachers incorporate this active learning across the world, and active learning offers benefits to not only the teachers themselves, but the students. So next time you're sitting in your 8 a.m. class and your teacher makes you get up and move around, no, they're not trying to torture you. They're just trying to use an active learning approach. Alright, so as you can see, that was a sample speech. I went through my outline and I used my outline note cards as well as my evidence note cards here. So if you have any questions, all you have to do is just let me know and we will we'll talk next time. So look over these documents, look over the references page as well, and let me know if you have questions, but that will be kind of the majority of our informative speech.